box in our living rooms. It's a mirror reflecting the intricate tapestry of Indian culture and society. Today, as we gather to explore its influence, let's journey through the screens that have not only entertained but also shaped ideologies, norms, and narratives. Join us in unraveling the multifaceted impact of television on the vibrant canvas of Indian culture and society. Very good evening, this is Manish Nair welcoming you all to yet another interesting session. Mr. Siddharth Kak, a documentary filmmaker, television producer and presenter. Siddharth ji, love and appreciation which will keep coming, is well known for producing and hosting Surabhi 1993 to 2001, having produced over 100 documentaries and other long-running television programs for India's top television channels. Siddharthji's Cinema Vision India Television Company has won 3 national awards. You can clap once again for them. As well as several major television awards. For the Prime Minister's Skill Mission, Siddharthji is now producing and hosting the prime-time reality show Hunar Baaz. Next we have Nandita Om Puri, a former student of English literature. You can have a round of clap. Nandita ji started out as a journalist with some of the leading publications in the country, including The Statesman, The Telegraph, and the TOI Group. She wrote a popular weekly column on films for nearly a decade with Midday and Dainik Bhaskar. Apart from working as a broadcaster for Aaron Mark Tully's radio network, she has been on the script committees of NFDC and CFSI as well as a TEDx speaker. She also writes for television and films. Next we have fondly recognized as a man who led English into advertising, Bharat Dabholkar. He is an Indian actor, director, writer. His brilliance rarely goes unnoticed, especially in advertising. And when a blowtorch like he comes along, you can expect to see some trailblazing creativity that happened within iconic brand Amul. Mantra of his Amul success is be brief, be memorable. Next we have a former director of programming at Z Network, Vinta Nanda ji. A huge round of applause. She has directed the recent documentary feature Shout 2023, latest. She is the editor of the Daily Eye and online media, theDailyEye.info. Her critically acclaimed film White Noise 2004, starring Rahul Bose and Koyal Puri, screened at international film festivals including Karachi, Florence, Seattle and Pune. Vinita ji has produced, directed and written the long-running television series Tara, Rahe, Rahat, Outbreak, Mili. Her edutainment work includes the television series Sheila, Kasba, Anant, Aparajita and documentary titled The Distant Thunder. From 2013 to 2018, Vinita ji led the Third Eye program in partnership with Norman Lear Center's flagship program, Hollywood Health and Society at USC Edinburgh, to build an edutainment model for the Indian industry for entertainment. And next, we have our own pride of Nagpur, Dr. Supantha Bhattacharya as a moderator. We have the person, quizzer, quizmaster, poet. He edits poetry journal Rhythmics, presented and published numerous research papers in national and international journals. I would request Dr. Supantha Bhattacharya to take this over and head the discussion forward, please.
Thank you, Manish ji. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'll begin this session by asking a quiz question to the audience. How many of you can hum the theme music of Doordarshan? Let's hear it out loud. Yeah, please, go ahead. Right. Well done, ma'am. That's how our evenings began. At least us kids who grew up in the 80s and the 90s, the TT generation, the TT kids. So, although it's evening, maybe we should christen this session DD days. All right. India's first national television broadcaster, as you know, played a very pivotal role in shaping the country's cultural landscape and social fabric. I'm sure you won't have to tax your brains to remember some of those iconic shows. Hum Log, Khandan, what else do you remember?
Ye Jo Hai Zindagi.
Bunyad,
Ye Jo Hai Zindagi.
Ye Jo Hai Zindagi, Surabhi, I was coming to that last. Day by Day. You don't remember, sorry? What's the good word? Sabira Merchants, yeah. Anything else? Malgudi Days, Tana Na Na Na. Bharat Ek Khoj, absolutely, one of the best programs. Ma'am? World This Week, Siddharth Basu's Quiz Time. Right. And friends, then there was Surabhi. Let's hear it for. As I was discussing this with Siddharthji last evening, Surabhi, apart from the wealth of cultural information it provided, there was something very warm, something very gentle, something very feel-good about Surabhi. The late Renuka Shane with her brilliant smile, Siddharthji, I'm so sorry. I checked on the internet and said that, I'm so sorry, wrong source. But then, well, that has added, I'm sure it has added at least 50 years to her life, right? May she hit a century. I'm so sorry for the mistake. But then Renuka Shane with her million-watt smile and Siddharthji with his very elegant jackets and his kurta pajama and his shawls, my God, his phenomenal shawls. And there was something very, very otherworldly about Surabhi. And at the end of it all, I remember, my mother would always say, you know, after watching an episode of Surabhi, it appears as if some Surabhi has spread into our homes. There's the fragrance, and it's so aptly named. So, a round of applause again for Siddharth sir. And I'll begin this session, in the 90s, post-90s, what happened is, thanks to satellite television, there was a significant challenge for Doordarshan, and it faced competition from all these channels, including your channel, ma'am, Z, which was one of the earliest Subhash Chandra Z TV. There was stiff competition for viewership and advertising revenue. So Doordarshan was also forced to diversify its programming. So despite all these challenges, Doordarshan's legacy is undeniable. And today in an increasingly fragmented media landscape, Doordarshan's role as a public broadcaster remains absolutely relevant. So I'll begin today's session by asking our panelists to talk about their memories of the Doordarshan days, the good old Doordarshan days, and how do they see its legacy, and how did Doordarshan impact the cultural, entertainment and information segments of India back in the 80s and 90s, and is it still relevant in spite of the government hegemony which it is supposedly under? So I'll begin with you, Vinta.
So thank you very much for having me on this panel, and I'm not so sure I qualify with both these men, especially sitting on the podium, because for me my memories of Doordarshan is because that was my learning ground, because satellite television hadn't happened at that point in time, and Doordarshan serials like Ye Jo Hai Zindagi, Puraskar and Guniram, and there were several. I'm coming there. So those were the serials on which I worked as an assistant director, and I was ready to take the plunge when satellite television came. And that plunge happened because none of these guys were ready to work for the kind of budgets that Zee was offering. They were minting money at that point in time. So when Subhash Chandra went to anybody and said, make me a serial in 60,000, 70,000 rupees an episode, all of them just laughed at him. And that's how opportunity knocked on my door, who was ready to direct and produce, and therefore I got the opportunity to make it. So Tara happened, you know. But since you're talking about memories of Doordarshan, another little small memory of mine is that those were the days, and I was discussing that with Siddharth ji at the airport yesterday. That was a time when the entire space used to reverberate with one show at a time. And although I think by the time satellite television came, the viewership of Doordarshan was well over 100 million, I would say. And there were 100 million people watching the same thing at the same time. And that power that television had has never been revisited again. Because after that, now there are 100,000 things for people to view. So you can never have the whole nation, except for cricket or maybe a specific Bollywood event, ever have the whole nation watching the same thing. And therefore the impact of that television, I think it impacted my generation for sure, as filmmakers, as television producers. You know, the quality of programming, very ironically, was much better when there was no competition than what has happened to television post that. That quality of storytelling, whether it was a Surabhi, I mean, if the India and its heritage was introduced to my generation, it was Surabhi which did it. Whether the partition, for instance, if we are aware of what the partition was all about, it is Bunyad and Tamas. And if we know what comedy is, because India has never seen a better comedy than Ye Jo Hai Zindagi. So, although everybody says this very, you know, that we needed competition and that's why, but competition was about making money. It was no longer about storytelling. And that's the misfortune. So that's as much as I'll say on a stage where we have some wonderful speakers now.
Nandita,
I'm the only outsider here. The August gathering here is all part of television, Doordarshan. Yeah, okay. But I talk as an audience. Doordarshan to me, I think, is the cradle of Indian television. You know, and it was quality as opposed to today's quantity. That was Doordarshan. We knew the programs, as you said, it's a single program. So we knew exactly Chitrahar came on Thursday, I think, and World This Week came on Friday evening. It's been so many years, I still remember. And in the Sunday morning, I used to have a bath and I used to hear Bharat Dabholkar, History of India. I mean, who would have read Nehru's big, with all due respect to him, you know, discovery letters from a father to his daughter, Discovery of India, had not Shyam Benegal put it so beautifully in Doordarshan, episode-wise. And I would hear the jingle of Bharat Dabholkar and know that I should be there, because the next would be Ramayana and then Mahabharata. Even today, a lot of actors' faces, like when you say, who's Girija Shankar? You say, oh, Mahabharata ka Dhritarashtra. Acha, oh, immediately people associate. Wonderful series. Of course, Surabhi. We used to watch for the, and see how many questions and the letters Surabhi had, and you would read out. So it was amazing. It was fabulous. Another thing Doordarshan did was it had the mainstream directors of the day, whether it was Rishikesh Mukherjee, Basu Chatterjee, Gulzar Saab, Ramesh Sippy. Yes, they had that kind of quality which the directors and filmmakers gave it to the audience, gave it to India, gave it to Doordarshan. Today you don't have, you have hundreds of channels with hundreds of, Saas, Bahu, this, that, crime series and all, but you don't have that quality of directors. Today you can't expect a good director like a Raju Hirani or a Farhan Akhtar or anybody do quality program because they know they'll get lost. Which channel are they going to do for? Unless it's cricket or unless it's some major thing. I remember during when the screening of Thomas, there was silence. Satyajit Ray, Sadgati. Calcutta, literally everyone was home because the first time Satyajit Ray was going to do something for television. So that was Doordarshan, and of course, because of rigidity, because they had so many, it became like a mama's boy, I think, Doordarshan, in terms, they had all these little rules and then all you do's and don'ts. As a result, OTT and your other television channels decided to go a little more relaxed. I wish Doordarshan is more liberal, was more liberal, and they still have a chance because they have the largest bandwidth in the country. So if they up their game, if they are a little more liberal, I'm sure they can bring back those quality days.
Thank you. Thank you. Bharatji, you have had a long association.
No.
No. Okay.
I'll tell you what.
But memories of Doordarshan days?
Yeah, some horrible ones, but I agree with both of them that I think Doordarshan set what we should do during the week. We, I think, scheduled our meetings, our outings on the basis of, is there Rajani coming on this day at this time? Is there a Yeshua Zindagi come on? It's like a simple thing like, we used to do English theatre, which was only a Sunday evening theatre for us that time. And then if there was a good film happening, nobody would come to see our plays. So we hated Doordarshan because for no fault of ours, people wouldn't come because they said, अच्छा film है, play तो अगले Sunday भी देख सकते हैं.
Bharatji, you won't believe this, but Vidarbha Cricket Association changed its league cricket timing because Ramayana would come on at 9.
No, but that is entertainment. In Maharashtrians, the wedding muhurt's in the morning. Sunday morning, people would not come for your wedding if there was a Mahabharata happening. So the priest had to say, 10:30 का मुहूर्त है, लेकिन आप 11 का रखो because तब महाभारत खत्म होता है, तो लोग आ पाएंगे वहाँ पे. So it was as bad as that. But I think what was happening is that time, as we were discussing, Doordarshan was the only entertainment channel, and they had all these wonderful programs with wonderful directors, wonderful actors, and they became a part of our life. And then other channels started coming, and I think Doordarshan went through these phases. When Z happened and other channels happened. As an advertiser, we still had that thing that Doordarshan had that territorial reach, which the channels didn't have at that time. So if we had to advertise and reach everybody in India, we still preferred Doordarshan because it went from town to town, village to village, which other channels didn't have. And then when it happened that other channels had satellite reach, which was equally good, and they had more entertaining programs, I think Doordarshan lost its glory to a certain extent. No, I said I had horrible experiences because in the 80s, I was asked to write and direct a Hindi breakfast serial, which was the first sponsored breakfast serial in India. It was called Dhamal. And each episode that time had a superstar from Bollywood at that time. So I had Govinda in one episode, I had Anil Kapoor in one, I had Sanjay Dutt in one, and Satish Shah was the compere, and I was the writer-director of that. And I realized that whatever you wrote, it had to go to Delhi for approval. And then they would come up and say, Hajam mat bolna, because people will get upset. So we had to keep on changing in a comedy show. Every word had to be vetted by them. And they kept on sending things at the last moment to say, don't say this will hurt somebody's feelings. So we had to do comedy keeping in mind that Doordarshan may not allow these kinds of things. It was very difficult. And we were working with the superstars. It was a tragedy. It was a tragedy. So then I think what happened for people, a lot of people, was when these channels, other channels came up, it was like freedom for them. They felt that it's much easier to work with these channels. And those days, when people like Vinta and all that worked in that, I think you recognize good talent, which I don't know if people do now. Because now it's become a different committee kind of a thing. And I think that should be the death knell of good programming on channels, is what I feel. That when committee starts deciding on what's good and what's bad, and you have youngsters who've never written anything in their life, judgment over what you're writing. I think that's what will stop. In fact, in my email, I have a permanent line. It says, "Camel is a horse designed by a committee." You know, when you tell a committee design a horse, somebody will say, "Pair lamba karo," somebody will say, "Uska piche thumb lo pakadne ke liye." Then you don't get a horse, you get a camel. So I think what will happen to programming if they do this will be a camel.
And now the youngest member of the panel, the one and only Siddharth ji. Apart from Surbi, sir, you have had a long association with DTN. You are one of the insiders of Doordarshan. We are anticipating lots of anecdotes from you. At least a few, maybe.
Anticipation is a tricky scenario. But I have actually something which I would like to share. That all that we are hearing and talking and what we are remembering pertains to a certain, according to me, largely a certain golden age of Doordarshan. Those were possibly those 80s and 90s. And I remember
The infancy of television.
the
The infancy of television.
Infancy.
Baby steps. The television had just arrived. 82. She had.
yeah, but in the 90s it opened out to sponsorship. I think the great golden age of Doordarshan was when two Bengalis actually were controlling Doordarshan. Bhaskar Ghosh and Basu, R. Basu. So they had a certain liberal approach to things, and they invited the best from across the country without sort of fear or favor to come in. And there was sponsorship which meant that Doordarshan didn't have to pay for it. I do remember the charm of it, we took it for granted. I had a conference once in Australia, and I realized that what you mentioned, Vinta, that the broadcast audience of Surabhi was 100 million people, which was more than the population of Australia. And they couldn't, it was mind-boggling that, maybe 1/10 of the country is watching, and as she said, when I used to go out next morning after the show, there used to be people telling me, "Ye bari ke diye thi, this was right, this was wrong, we remember this, we remember that." They remembered the episode. Today, you cannot remember anybody's episode in that kind of a detail. What I would like to say is that also brought with it a certain restriction. We are remembering great things about Doordarshan and we've forgotten what Doordarshan really was. In my time when I began, and before Surabhi, and before the, shall we say, the sponsorship liberalization came, it was all commissioned by Doordarshan. Doordarshan, by the way, was a hotbed also of what we would call corruption. CBI had inquiries into Doordarshan. And the other thing I would tell you, I could never imagine I could ever make a living from television before it liberalized. And that was because they would not give you more than 13 episodes. Like, you can't make your livelihood out of 13 episodes in 5 years. Surely not. And that was the limitation of Doordarshan because it was run by fiat. As he said, everything went up from there. So we are forgetting that actually it was two people, or shall we say a few people like that, who transformed and created, because they worked within a platform which was still bureaucratic, but they were able to extend the boundaries of that particular platform. What has happened from then till today is that we have come, the pendulum has swung completely to the other end. When we were taking part in Doordarshan, we would complain bitterly about the bureaucracy, about the so-called corruption, about the fact that we had to submit our films and everything had to be passed most unreasonably sometimes. Things had to be eliminated. You had no appeal. There was no recourse. Then we thought, hey, now it is liberalized and now the market forces are coming. Now it's going to be the golden age of Doordarshan, not realizing that the golden age was about to slip away. And then it started from where actually content was still valued, because as a social platform, as a public broadcaster, without doing very much, the only value for anybody to see, everybody wanted to be on Doordarshan. That's why it had the power, because it was a monopoly. And then, when that changed, slowly, we realized that we are seeing more and more of the same damn thing. It is not changing. We are getting more and more of the same kind of high velocity driven. And very soon, what we considered to be people and producers became, transformed in the minds of not advertisers like him, because he had a parrot in his office, and he was one of the and a monkey. So he was one of the most outstanding, amazing advertising people that I've ever known, and brilliant advertiser. But otherwise, the marketing agencies were now not talking of content. They were talking of product. They were not talking of producers or of audience. They were talking of market. So what did it mean that you were making a product for a market? So Surabhi or anybody's show, Tara was a product for a market. It doesn't matter what the hell you're making. What is the rating of your market is exactly fine. So that is what it has been reduced to today. I am not very optimistic, because Doordarshan is not relevant to my mind, particularly today. Not to the advertisers, at any rate, except maybe to some very, very low. The problem with Doordarshan is, and this is the problem with which the marketers see it, that the people who still watch Doordarshan, the good Indians, the responsible Indians, the sort of, the traditional, if you feel like Indian, भाई उनके पास कोई पैसे नहीं। अब ये बिल्कुल सत्य थी आपने बताया कि भाई आप तो देख रहे हो, इतनी बड़ी संख्या में देख रहे हो, लेकिन आपके पॉकेट में पैसा नहीं है गाड़ी खरीदने के लिए जो आप एडवर्टाइज करना चाहते हो। तो क्या आपको हवाम सुख भी नहीं, वो क्या 501 500 वही आप उसको करेंगे, एडवर्टाइज करेंगे, है ना? That is the tragedy of Doordarshan today, that it has gone from being a content-driven platform to a market-driven platform. It's the poor man's channel, तो वो आपको वही मिलेगा जो उस पर वो मिलता है. It can be changed, but it needs a vision and it needs will, and that is not only just determination, it needs political will as well.
So, what's your one fondest memory from shooting Surabhi that you still remember?
All right, you must too many, but one I will tell you, and that brought home to me what one fat man and what one slim young woman, no matinee heroes, could do for an audience, or how we could be seen by the audience. I was filming with my team in the Andaman Islands, long time back. और वहाँ पे we were in one of the Andaman Island jungles. We were inside. Andaman Islands is, I don't know how many islands, but we were in one of the principal islands in the forests, and nothing. I mean, it was all wild, primeval. This was the beginning of time, if you feel like. और मेरी जीप में बैठा हूँ, हम चल रहे हैं. हमारे सामने some old woman emerges from the forest, कुछ लकड़ी वकड़ी लेके जा रही है, and she's crossing the road. और वो road cross कर रही है, तो अभी वहाँ तो traffic कहाँ होता है, तो she is not bothered कि भाई traffic आ रहा है, तो the jeep stops to allow her to pass. When the jeep stops, she realizes कोई कुछ आया है, and she looks up, and she sees this lot of people sitting in a jeep waiting for her to cross the vehicle, the road. Then suddenly her eyes light up. Surabhi? That is the power of this television and how it used to be. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Across the length and breadth of the country, literally. Yeah, and I'm sure you have lots of memories, lots of questions, audience, and feel free to pose them to the panel. Okay, ma'am. Yes, first question.
Yeah.
Okay, but please keep it short. Yeah.
I was interviewing a dacoit just after the surrender had happened. I was interviewing him in Morena, in Madhya Pradesh, and he said, "Ghar aa jao." तो डर डर के मैं गई ब्लैक एंड वाइट कैमरा लेके, एंड ही सेड, आज संडे है, बैठो, रामायण देखना है. So he made me sit on the bed with him, and his grandson, his whole family was sitting on the floor. They watched Ramayan. He gave me his interview, and he said, "अभी हम काम पे जाएंगे." Took his rifle and he went.
Oh, wonderful. I have one memory of the Ramayan days. The lady who would work at our house, every day she would come with a handful of flowers, put it on the television set, the flowers on the television set, and then very devoutly sit and watch the entire episode. So, transformation. Yeah, please.
During that time, restaurant used to be empty.
Right,
So
sir.
restaurant people started putting the TV in their restaurant.
Even trains would stop. The drivers would drive in the car. They would get down, watch Ramayana, Mahabharata, and then.
So इससे पहले हम लोगों का सेशन था where I was talking about दूरदर्शन only, and very coincidentally हम लोग वही बात कर रहे हैं, what beautiful memories do we all have. So मेरा एक शो आता था दूरदर्शन पे, जो कहूँगा सच कहूँगा, वो 2 साल चला, and after that I took a very long road trip from Bombay to Lucknow. जिस भी हाईवे पे मैं रुकी हूँ, ढाबे पे खाना खाया, I was not charged for the food. They just refused to take money from me because वो लोग मेरा शो देखते थे.
Yes, the ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the quiz master of Nagpur, Padmanabhan Pillai. Yeah, he's the president of an organization called Nagpur Quiz Club. Please send all your children to this club. Every day we have a quiz program. Every Sunday we have a quiz program at Islip College, and it's extremely illuminating, if I may use that word.
Thank you.
It adds to your knowledge base. Yeah.
My question is to Siddharth sir. I'm sure everybody keeps asking the same question to you every single day whenever you meet somebody. And Doordarshan is pretty notorious when it comes to archives. So will the archives of Surabhi ever be made available to the public for sale or for free?
There is a short answer to that, and that is yes.
I think Rupa has also published a book.
Rupa has published 2 of my books.
Yes.
One is on Surabhi.
Yeah, talking of Surabhi.
And recently, yesterday, the book which you have seen called The Love Inside Redemption.
My question is,
Mr. Vilas Kade needs no introduction.
no, that's, my question is that, okay, Doordarshan is in a bad phase and things like that, but the whole country is saying Modi hai to mumkin hai. So why don't you people like you who've seen the good days and things like that, I would request you actually, why don't you make a representation to tell him to revamp this whole damn thing and get it back into where it was?
So there are 2 kinds of people. One are the kinds of people who make programs, and the other are the kinds of people who make demonstrations. So you have to have, there are 2 different mindsets. To organize, to lobby, to protest, to execute. And the other is just to be deeply involved with the team in the creative process. They don't come together. You have to have different qualities.
No, I agree, but if the leadership is convinced,
आप करिए ना तो हम लोग आपके
अरे हम कहाँ करें, हमारा कोई interest नहीं.
Any further questions? I'm sure there are quite a few. Yeah, please. No,
Can someone please help pass on the mic?
Yeah, we have a question here.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah. Mic. Only the mic is getting passed on. Please take on the mic.
Yeah, my question was,
what do you see the future of television itself? Because with OTT and with the way we are consuming content, we look at series, but we watch it together. So we are not really, dropping one episode a week or whatever it was. So people don't even have that much patience to wait for another episode to drop. So would some of you share what you think is the future of television as we knew it in this particular, maybe Vinta or even Siddharth, even Bharat as an advertiser, I don't know. But with OTT content, how do you see it settling down, or I don't know?
Quickly before that, I think what happens is every time something new comes up, there's always this worry that the old will disappear. It happened when people thought television has come, so radio will disappear, and it didn't. It is, in fact, internationally, it's growing leaps by leaps and bounds because it's still effective. I think when Doordarshan came, people thought something else will disappear, press will disappear. So I think what happens is, ultimately, everything finds its place and its own sort of core audience that sees it. What matters is how many of those are relevant and how many, like you said, if it becomes that you have an audience but that doesn't have the buying power of anything, then is that relevant to the marketing guys? And if it's not relevant to them, will they give them enough money to make quality programs? Because the quality of your programs depend on how much money can sponsors give. So I think if the sponsors back out, the program naturally in quality drop. I think that may be one problem.
There was a talk that I used to deliver. It was entitled, "The Future of Television is Not Television." So don't believe me. You think that this is the future is OTT? It's not OTT either. So there is a scenario which is taking place where you, as an individual, are becoming the center of the universe. Not a good thing, but this is the way it's going right now. Which means that अगर किसी को गाड़ी भी बेचनी हो, they will sell it to you directly, one person, and that car will be designed for you, and that is the way one competitor will take over from the other. And that's what's going to happen with the media as well. You will then have the power of one. Now where that is going to go, I am not too sure. But certainly, media and television as an organized system has to now respect the power of one.
The harsh reality is we are running out of time, so we need to. One final question for the ladies in the panel, Nandita ma'am and Vinta ma'am. Do you think Doordarshan was really instrumental in shaping perceptions about gender roles in the 90s? Femme fatales like Ketki in Khandan. Ma'am, you are not the first Mandira Mathur. There was Ketki before you, brilliantly portrayed by Nina Gupta. And the new woman, the millennial woman, did Doordarshan have some kind of a role to play in that?
I don't really think so. Maybe it did in a very minimal way, but as everyone said, the reason for Doordarshan taking a backseat is it was not too liberal, and they had certain portrayals. This is right, this is wrong. Further, after that, there were many of the other channels which, like other SARS, so where women were portrayed in a wholesome way. It's not this and that. So I don't think Doordarshan was really,
I think Doordarshan catered to what was.
I think I have a slightly different point of view on this. I think the women like Ratna Pathak and Supriya in Idhar Udhar, Rajni, Priyate Durkal in Rajni, Doordarshan had a very, very strong opinion on gender and women, and we were actually living in that part of socialism when the focus was on women. Doordarshan was, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was Mrs. Gandhi's reign during which Hum Log was conceived and then finally came to happen. and those girls were very empowered in Hum Log. And the issues that they discussed were what should be discussed on television even today. Subsequently, I think the reason why the first ever what they call the feminist show called Tara happened is because the ground was laid out by Doordarshan to be able to, because with economic liberalization came satellite television and came Tara. And we were able to portray those women as they were without frilling them up with this and that. And I think guys like Bharat and Alec Padamsee had a very big role to play in the Rajnis and the, the kind of women who were being portrayed, because they were putting their money behind the power of money behind those shows. And that's why it all happened. It's after the Tara, it's after that in 1997-98, when the whole thing changed 360 degrees with the coming of the first BJP government, when they shut down all of modern storytelling, which started in 1982 and continued till 1998. Shut down all the modern urban storytelling and shifted the entire focus to Saas Bahu. And Balaji telefilms came up, and that's how the change happened. And women are now in a very bad shape as far as television is concerned. Star did the biggest disservice, in fact, according to me, to pander to that kind of politics and take women back by at least 30 years in 1998.
That's a brilliant insight into, the gender politics of television. Friends, I wish I didn't have to call the curtains down on this wonderful discussion. And let's hear it for all the panelists. For the years of entertainment and knowledge they have provided us. May the show never stop. And thank you, wonderful audience, for your memories of Doordarshan and the questions you put forth for our panelists. Thank you once again, and we'll meet again. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.